Hello. So I am very excited to be doing our fourth installment, our fourth episode of Walk With Me, our She Rises and Thrives podcast, all about trying to make this crazy life work, right? So I have been, this whole week has been a whirlwind, really, of trying to figure out what the best way of publicizing my book would be. And so it's just a fun new world to navigate. And there is a lot of self-doubt that starts to creep in. So I thought I would do this episode on squashing self-doubt, because I think as women, even when we think we're like super positive and very nice to ourselves, that we can get in our own heads really, really easily about everything. So actually, it's pretty funny because it's not even in one specific area. I found myself in a couple different instances this week. And it's incredible to think how much we can learn about ourselves when we really start second guessing, right? So just for example, I have the most incredible women's group. I know I've mentioned them before here, but so Thursday nights I get to meet with this incredible group of ladies who I love. And so I had the intention to ask about getting an endorsement for my book. I love the leader of our women's group, and so I was going to reach out to her, and I got in my own head like, no, this is she's too busy, or this is going to be perceived as XYZ, and so I didn't follow through. And then later on, the next morning, I was really sad about it, and I was like, kind of felt like I had let myself down, because if she's too busy, then that's fantastic, and I am absolutely understanding of that. But I almost felt like I cheated myself out at a chance. And one thing that I feel like I've been doing really, really well at lately is intentionally putting myself out there, even if it's in an uncomfortable situation. But if it's put on my heart, I follow my heart. And so it was a really awesome insight and acknowledgement to kind of feel that feeling of having let myself down and being like, oh, I have to correct that right away. So I did. I reached out to her. But my point is that we can second guess ourselves out of some pretty incredible opportunities. And it's all because we're trying to either like save face or be in better alignment with who we think, either we're supposed to be, or what other people are supposed to think of us, or whatever the case might be. But in trying to maintain this weird, highly regarded sense of self, or whatever the case might be, we end up shorting ourselves of some pretty fantastic experiences, or who knows, right? Like, why was it even put on our heart to begin with? So it's like that door that will never open because we didn't even seize the opportunity or take a chance on it may have been something that was so divinely designed for our benefit, whatever. So anyway, it led into that whole situation from Thursday night and Friday morning really led me to go on this, like, all of a sudden I was on a crusade. I started trying to do a mental audit of what have I been holding myself back from, and what have I not taken the opportunity to do? What would I try to do differently in the future as I'm especially trying to promote this book, because I don't even feel like it's mine. I feel like this book, right, I mean, I wrote it, but I feel like it's too beautiful to not be a coincidence, right? That I have the experience personally and then the experience professionally to kind of put this stuff together. so that other women in recovery can simplify and streamline their success, right? So anyway, I don't even feel like it's mine. I feel like this is like God's gift, or, you know, whatever. So anyway, I started really being like, you know what? The sky's the limit. Who are the people who we want to reach out to see, you know, can we partner somehow? Or, you know, who do I think would benefit from this book? How can we get the word out and whatever? And so it kind of started tapping into all of these feelings that were really based in that whole sense of like, it's almost self-sabotage if you think about it, right? Because it's like self-doubt turns into this blanket that holds us down from even trying to pursue things that were put on our heart for a reason. Like the whole reason why we do anything is because things are put on our heart, right? It's like we get a cool idea and it's like, oh, that sounds fun. Or, you know, we get an inkling or a desire and it's like, you know, that's what A, makes us unique, and then B, also makes us pursue things in life that make life worth living, right? So anyway, it was a lot of all of these different thoughts this past few days that have led me to think, you know, what can we be doing to make sure that we really optimize our experiences as women without getting in our head? Like, A, what causes it? And B, what can we do to get out of our own way? Because that's what we are, right? We're getting in our own way. So in today's episode, I would like to solve the problems of the women of the world. So tackling A to begin with, like what makes us so inhibited or self-conscious. And so I was actually talking with somebody yesterday about like why are we and she's a phenomenal woman, and she leads like a women's leadership group in her company. And she was talking about how, you know, she's trying to make sure that everybody has these awesome opportunities to be seen and heard and feel validated. And it was so cool. It was like, just listening to her, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we women need, right? We need to be, you know, have these like champions who are on a mission to make sure that none of us feel like our light is dimmed, right? But that we are all like special and, you know, provide this unique piece to womanhood, whatever, to wherever we are, to whatever group we're in, to whatever we're trying to do or accomplish or make a difference with. So in talking with her though, it was so cool to be able to kind of hear somebody use the verbiage of basically trying to, you know, allow women to be free of judgment. And I thought it was like a lightning bolt hit me in that moment, because it was like, that's what all of this is. That's what all of this is. Like right back to middle school Mean Girls. Like, why do we try to dim our light? Or, I mean, think about how many times we've had like an incredible idea and didn't raise our hands because it was like, what if we're laughed at? Or, you know, whatever other people might think or do. And so we didn't contribute and we didn't speak up and we didn't, you know, say our piece, and we could have had like some kind of life-changing reverberation, you know, but we just didn't do it because we were scared. And it's like, what are we scared of? And obviously it's like, okay, so the fear of judgment is huge. And I mean, we have that now. We have that, you know, even as adults who are completely cognizant of the fact that, that we have this going on. Whoop, you okay? There we go. And, you know, have the ability to circumnavigate that and be like, you know, conscientiously or consciously say like, no, I don't want to feel that way. And so instead I'm going to XYZ, but we don't. So the whole thing that I am trying to get to the bottom of is like, okay, so it's judgment, right? We're afraid of being, you know, judged by others in a negative way. B, acceptance. I think we are all so like evolutionary, like wired to long for acceptance and to seek that out in any group, right? So almost like a safety in numbers thing as I'm thinking about it, because the more people, the more people who accept you, then you just feel like not only validated, but you feel like you have that sense of belonging. And this even ties into, my counselor was talking yesterday about how he had just recently been talking with somebody about validation and about how we really seek that out in other people to solidify and secure our own identity of ourselves. And it was like tied in so perfectly to all of these things that I've been mulling over for the past few days regarding like, why do we self-sabotage with self-doubt and follow through by not following through? So not only are we afraid of that judgment, but I think the fear of not being accepted, and then the fear of having like that identity crisis that we can experience when it's like, who am I and what do I think and how do I feel and do I want this? Because it's hard to be able to suss out like, do I really want to send this message, or do I really want to do this, make this attempt to reach out to somebody or to share my idea or to speak up or to whatever the case might be. And then if you have the that almost like holding back kind of a second guessing or self-doubt, it's like, is it self-doubt or is it your body and mind trying to tell you to do the right thing and that the first inclination you had was the wrong thing? So there's just so many different things to think about. And so those were the big three that I really came to kind of see as like the cruxes of the issue, right? So there's A, the fear of judgment, B, the fear of not being accepted or being ostracized, right? Because people are like, she's crazy. I mean, my middle one is in 10th grade, and you want to talk about mean girls. I mean, they have to walk on eggshells just even in like the cafeteria. At one point, somebody was saying, can you come get me? Because so-and-sos aren't here today and I have nobody to sit with at lunch. And I was like, sit by yourself. And she was like, I can't do that. And then when I was joking about it with my oldest Lily, I was like, yeah, she's like trying to have me pick her up. And I told her to go sit by herself. And she was like, she can't do that. That's like suicide. Like you can't, that's like social suicide. You can't just sit by yourself. You'll be ostracized as a weirdo for the rest of your days. But it was like, oh my gosh, how intense. So, I mean, we are still, even as adults who are fully aware that we shouldn't feel this way, we do. And so anyway, so it's fully just accepting, acknowledging, whatever the case might be, that is there. So with the A, B, and C, back to that. So we have A, fear of judgment, B, fear of not being accepted, and then C, fear of identity crisis. So now that we've acknowledged or identified the major cruxes of, what lead us to this self-doubt and this self-sabotage, how can we make sure that we don't have this anymore? So I started thinking about like an audit, right? Like what can we do that's going to be able to self-check? Like there's a long time ago, somebody was, it was Joyce Meyer, of course it was doing a sermon, and she was talking about how sometimes you feel like, is this God talking to me or is this the devil? Because it's like, it's hard to think, is this leading me in the right direction or the wrong direction? So you can almost kind of think like, well, does this sound like something that God would say? Or does this sound like something, who's whatever, like definitely not a divine message or guidance or whatever. And the way that you can tell, obviously, is like God doesn't intend to make us feel bad. So if it's something that's like negative or shaming or guilting or whatever, then it's not divine. So anyway, I really took that to heart, and it's guided me in a ton of times that I've really struggled with, like, is this something that is for my benefit, or is this something that's for my detriment? And it's worked. So I wanted to kind of figure out what we could do in order to be able to use that same approach and instead set ourselves up for success by getting ourselves out of our way, right? So in thinking about this, and obviously this isn't perfected yet, but I would love to be able to get to the point where it's kind of like, is this negative self-talk or positive self-talk? Because how simple, right? I mean, how easy could it be to just even say, like, am I getting in my way, or am I moving myself in the right direction? Am I hindering myself or helping myself? So I think if we can use that kind of assessment in terms of the 3 points, right? Judgment, fear of not being accepted or being ostracized, and then fear of an identity crisis, right? So it's like, okay, for the first one, let's just use that example of wanting to reach out for an endorsement for my book from somebody who means a lot to me. So first, there's the fear, right? So first of all, we'll go right down the list for the 3 bullet points. So A, we're afraid of being basically, or dealing with a response that's going to be not only negative, but make us feel like we are being judged harshly. So a no, right, would not only be a no, but it would be like a hit to my self-esteem. Like, no, I don't believe in your project. I don't want my name on this. It would be all of these things that I would be making it into, not that she would say, not that any normal person would say. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, just even from that audit right there, I know she would never say those things. And if she did say no, then it's almost like I would actually be fine with that, because I know A, she's super busy, and B, like, she wouldn't want to be offending me. So there's not even that element of like taking things personally. B, would I feel ostracized or not accepted? A, I know she's one of my biggest cheerleaders and always so insanely supportive. So I'm not in any danger, and she knows all about this project, like through and through. So there's no danger there either. And with respect to trying to have that sense of identity remain intact, I think by having a focus on why do I want to have somebody like that person endorse my book, right? So it's kind of like, who am I and what am I trying to have validated? And I'll tell you that this one actually really kind of stood out when I was doing this like process of, self-exploration and like, am I getting in my own way? I have been trying really hard to kind of like keep myself in check and keep myself out of the processes having to do with this book. I know that sounds silly, but it's like every single point I'm just kind of like, I don't know, I'm letting God lead the way here, because I don't know. Even in terms of the decision on the publishing date, we're between April 27th and May 27th, and that's a whole month of a difference. And I'm like, I don't know which one to pick. So I'm just going to let God have total control over the entire publishing process. And if it takes that extra month, it takes that extra month. I don't know. But there's been a lot of like just getting out of the way. Like, I don't know, that's not for me to decide. And so I think what has been very cool is the identity thing. I do have, you know, a lot invested in this book, and I really want it to succeed. But I also have a lot of trust in that whatever happens with it, happens with it. And so, and I've just really started kind of like practicing being okay with it and becoming okay with it, just out of kind of like repetitive surrendering, I guess. So, anyway, I want to encourage everybody to really start catching self-doubt, which I think is one of the hardest things, right? Because I think of myself as a super positive person. And it wasn't until like a couple months back when my middle one was like, man, you are super hard on yourself. And I was like, I am my biggest cheerleader. And she was like, I don't think so. I don't think you are. And it was like a 2x4, like of, a realization, because it was like, oh my gosh, I really am really judgmental about myself. And so I think since that happened, my awareness about me judging myself way more harshly than other people do, but also having that result in me getting in my own way and not doing things and following my heart and making moves that I otherwise would, has really just come more and more on my radar. So now making a point to get out of my own way and, you know, allow myself to fully follow what is divinely designed, right? Because it's like kind of like desires are put on our heart for who knows what reason. But anyway, it all starts with first being able to say like, oh, look at me self-doubting, you know? And so catching it is the first step, and I think the hardest, because you think like, okay, you're just going through your day and you just kind of have an idea and you poo-poo it and you move on and you just forget about it, because that's been our MO and that's what we've done for however long. So instead of just poo-pooing and moving on, how can we kind of like start catching those thoughts and making it so that they work in our favor by highlighting things that we otherwise would be self-sabotaging and moving on from, instead of saying like, hey, this is an awesome idea. So that's going to be the first step. And I'll let you know as things go, because this is where I'll be focusing my energy now that this has kind of like popped up on my radar as something that I want to be focusing on and kind of getting out of my own way about. And then, you know, as I come up with some strategies, I'll share them. But I want to encourage you to start practicing awareness in terms of, you know, those times when you might be getting in your own head or in your own way. And then in addition to that, let's start analyzing when we are feeling like, oh no, I might be judged. Because I think, you know, we all want to make sure that we kind of are accepted, are not ostracized, and are not judged harshly. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're living authentically. So, you know, in those times when we do catch ourselves being like super hyper aware of the possibility or potential of us being judged, I think we kind of need to start kind of following that thread and thinking it through and thinking more about what would the judgment be, you know? Because there's healthy things that will keep you in line. I mean, my son was saying the other day that he has this shirt that I have even tried to throw it away, and he loves it, man, he loves it, and it just makes it so bummy looking. And he's like, you know, it's my shirt, it has nothing to do with you. And I was like, it makes me look like a bad mom. And I know it sounds crazy, but there it is. It's like that fear of judgment. Like, people see him and think, where is his mother, And so anyway, it's like we need to start kind of getting out of our own way and thinking more about like, is this really something that we need to be worried about in terms of judgment? I mean, is the need for fear valid? Then in terms of ostracized or not being accepted, I think we also need to start doing a deeper dive into like, are things as intense as we make them out to be, right? Because sometimes a desire to be accepted is like so blown out of proportion. And then even like in that moment, it might feel like it's a big deal. Like I look back on this crazy PTA that I was on for a little while, and there were a lot of girls on that PTA that, I don't know if it was the healthiest environment for anybody there. And so not being able to belong to that at the time was super sad. And now it's almost like, when you think like I dodged that bullet, like upon reflection. So I think we also need to be aware that, things in the moment might be just like a grandiose visualization or experience that really isn't in reality that big of a deal or is going to make that much of an impact. So anyway, that's in terms of acceptance, it's kind of like being able to vet or audit who we're trying to be accepted by and what the possible outcome is if we're not. Do you know what I mean? And then, of course, that identity. So, man, I had the most amazing conversation with my counselor about identity yesterday. And it was so cool to even have like this. I read the book Worthy, and that was incredible. And that was really, really clear about identity and about self-worth and all of these, self-confidence and the differences between all of these different components that make up our identity. And when my counselor was talking yesterday about how like people in recovery, like he doesn't like the word addict because it's like, no, you're Britt who had, an experience in dealing with alcohol. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not your identity as an addict. Instead, you are you who had an experience, in whatever it is, whether it's, any part of your life experience. And I thought that was so cool because it's like people get so wrapped up in one part of their life as like this defining, characteristic or this defining experience that, I think of like people who come out of prison and it's like for the rest of their lives, they feel like less than or something like that because they were imprisoned or they're, ex-felon, whatever. But it's like, to be consumed with a label for the rest of your life is so sad to even think of that. So when we think of our identity, it's like we don't, just because we have these, opportunities in life that even if they fall flat, it's like, okay, so that failed, but that's not your identity. I'm still Britt who tried to publish a book, and even if it failed, she did all of that work to publish that book. Do you know what I mean? So but it's like, even if it fails, it's not like I am Britt the failure. I had a book that didn't do as well as I wanted, but I gave it a shot. I gave it my best shot, and man, did I learn a ton in the process. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts on trying to start getting out of our way and self-sabotaging with self-doubt, and instead start auditing so that we can take those times where even if we don't realize it in the moment that we're actually getting in our own way, and instead start thinking of, okay, how can I be looking at this positively? Because I will tell you, it's a 50-50 shot that this book is going to work, right? That this book is going to be all that I imagine it to be, you know, for the next 10 years of my life, that I'll be on this crusade as a result, which would absolutely be, you know, the fulfillment of my life's dream. But at the same time, you know, when I start having self-doubt, like, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is going to work. It's like, yeah, but what if it could? What if it did? What if it could? So I want to encourage you to not only catch those times of self-doubt and those thoughts of self-doubt and self-sabotage, or the possibility of like getting in your own way. Start doing that audit with those 3 points, those 3 focuses, you know, that are you know, having a weird fear, or not weird, but an inordinate fear of being judged, ostracized, or having an identity crisis, you know, and instead think of something that's going to be like not focused on the negative. Like, yeah, something might XYZ, but what if it doesn't? And what if it's amazing? And what if it's life-changing? And what if it's groundbreaking? And what if it's the most incredible thing you've ever done, all wrapped up into one, you know? So anyway, that's my whole spiel for today and for this week. And I hope you guys enjoy. And I am so excited to just even be able to continue doing these beautiful podcasts with you that I have so much fun with. I mean, I think about these all week. I'm like, oh, that would be such a cool thing to be able to share, you know? So if you have any thoughts or ideas, please share. I would love to hear from you. Please make sure that you sign up to the She Rises and Thrives. Make sure you register. There's a free PDF on 3 things. And that's a free giveaway when you register and sign up, but you'll at least be able to have notices and updates when we publish the book. And make sure you like and subscribe. Okay, lots and lots of love to you. Tons of virtual hugs. Make sure no more self-doubt, no more self-sabotage, only self-love, and think of what's possible. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.